Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Faculty of Culture, Creative, and Performing Arts Virtual Faculty Week. My name is Dr. Stefan Walcott, and today we have a very exciting and enthusiastic panel of students who will be looking to get a little deeper into some of the cultural issues that constantly circulate within Barbados. The topic for today is Rihanna and Identities, and we'll be looking at what Rihanna means, the meanings, the historical positioning of Rihanna, and all those lovely cultural issues, that we speak about on the calling programs, etc. But the students will be bringing this academic perspective, this new perspective that reflects some of their discussions they have within the faculty. So, the subtitle for today's presentation is Negotiating Bodies and Being in the New Republic. Sounds like a mighty set of words, and I know that we're going to have a very rich discussion today. So, on our panel, we have all the way from Bahamas and beyond, Arianne Richardson.
Good
We
evening, everyone.
also we also will have with us Danico and Ralycia. And as I said before, our topic for today is Rihanna. It's all about Rihanna today. And if you have missed the new designation of Rihanna, which has really propelled this discussion to the forefront, I mean, her being assigned the national hero status in Barbados, then you have missed quite a bit. And let me just give a little bit of background on Rihanna. If you have been living under a rock or in isolation for the last 25 years, Robin Rihanna Fenty is one of, if not the most prominent Barbadian. From her work in music to apparel, her brand can be seen in many of the global metropoles. In November 2021, Rihanna was designated a national hero as part of the Republic Day celebrations, or ceremony, I should say. This was only the second time that the Barbadian state had assigned its highest civilian honor to a living person. The relationship with Rihanna, the state, and ultimately Barbadian identity is therefore a compelling one, and that's the one we'll be getting into today. So we'll be looking at questions. What does it mean for such a global icon um, to be seen as a national one? Also, um, what meanings, what ideas is the state looking to project in the future as it fashions a new state by this designation? So our young scholars will be looking to get into those little areas to talk about what it means to them personally, I guess, as well too as where they see this whole nationalist project and identity in modern Caribbean times going. So we're going to be dividing today into three segments. Segment one, we'll be looking at Beijing music and representation. And then segment two, respectability politics and the national hero status of Rihanna, which I mentioned a couple of times. And then section three, creating opportunities and space to nurture local talent and musical genres in this new republic. Now, obviously, this is not going to be a real seminar type. It's going to be very fluid, the conversation. Some of these things we may not even get to. But I just want to start off by getting each of our panelists to answer the question, hey guys, what does this whole Rihanna issue mean to you? Does it have any sort of cultural significance in terms of your own projects, your own development as young Caribbean artists? So whoever wants to jump in there first, feel right ahead to go ahead and take that question.
Okay, I will go first.
Yes, Ariane,
I
thank
just
you.
I just want to say first and foremost that I am not Barbadian, unfortunately. However, I have spent the last 5 years in Barbados. My great grandparents actually are from Barbados, but that's another story.
So
Uh,
we claim you like we claim all others of
Love
excellence
that.
of Barbadian descent. So you are claimed, Ariane. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, what does this whole Rihanna's designation as a national hero mean to a young person like me? I'm going to claim the young person title. Well, for me, being in the cultural studies, cultural industries, creative and culture industries field, it gives me a sense of pride to know that someone from the region has made it to the level while I'm alive of being designated as a global icon as well as a Caribbean icon and a Barbadian national icon. So it definitely gives me a sense of pride but also motivates me to do more and do better knowing that we come from humble beginnings but we are able to if we put our mind to it put the work in um, we can get to a certain level of success in whatever we do.
All
Um,
right. Thank you very much, Ariane. Go ahead, Danico.
yes. Hello, everyone. So for me, who is actually Barbadian, I think that Rihanna becoming a national
I thought we
hero.
were just claiming Ariane. I thought we were just claiming Ariane, Danico. They said for me, who's actually
Oh
Barbadian. Don't worry
God.
about Ariane. We have you covered. We have you covered. Go ahead, Danico. Sorry.
Yes, I think that it speaks to cultural progression for me. I believe that she is currently our youngest national hero, who has been given that status and title, and I think that that means a lot for the younger generation because whether you're a fan of her or a fan of hers or not, you cannot deny what she has done for the Caribbean and for Barbados, especially being able to help us be recognized and acknowledged. I think someone who is as authentic and introspective as she is, who has contributed so much, I think for me that feels good. That feels good to know that we are recognized, that there is a sense of our identity that is being portrayed to others in such an authentic manner. As Ariane said, even coming from humbling beginning, it tells a story of perseverance and success. And I think that that is quite important in terms of speaking a message to our younger audience and persons my age. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Danico. Ralycia?
I would definitely have to play on Arian's comment earlier because definitely as a young Black woman from the Caribbean region, you have a sense of pride and accomplishment, even though you're not the one who was proclaimed as a national hero within you. And as a little girl singing under my umbrella, out of tune, I might add, it's like coming full circle. It's an evolution of seeing all the combination of culture, the combination of identity, the combination of Rihanna as an individual and her progression throughout society. And as Danico pointed out, her humble beginnings, how she has transformed what it means to be Barbadian and what it also means to be Caribbean. And although I am not Barbadian myself, I do consider Barbados my home for the progression of my degree and beyond. So I have, in a sense, assimilated to Barbadian culture. So I do appreciate the title that she has been given.
All right. Thank you. And these are the softball questions. So let me keep them coming. So since we have people, citizens that have experiences outside of Barbados, how is Rihanna actually viewed outside of Barbados? How is her career and what she represents seen by other nationalities in the Caribbean? So Ariane and Ralycia, whoever wants to take it.
Oh, she's an icon through and through. It doesn't matter where you go. You could go to the deepest depths of the ocean, and she's going to be a Caribbean icon, a global icon. So I think that there's, continuity in that.
I would
Ralycia?
definitely have to agree. I would definitely have to agree as well. There's no question about it. even though she's Caribbean for first and foremost. And you know, we always appreciate our own. So that's the biggest part for me.
Well, that's fantastic. Because I know, for example, that there is competition still within the Caribbean. I mean, whether it is not at the level of some other spaces or other people that haven't shared the same regions, there's still competing nationalisms. So I always thought maybe that there was some sort of, not necessarily resentment, but some sort of not as enthusiastic uptake of her whole image and career as we have among some in Barbados. Was there any sort of negative pushback you guys came across? Any discussions of her in Bahamas, in other spaces? Arianne?
No, definitely not. And I think that with specific industries, because I know sports is probably one where there's a lot more competition, but within the creative and cultural industry, specifically music, let's talk about. Typically, if it's a Caribbean person, most of the Caribbean is going to be behind that one person because that person is representing us as a whole. Now, again, I'll say sports or things like that. We still have, our little rivalries here and there, and we'll say our team is better, or our player, or, our athlete is better. But when it comes to the music industry, once we know that person is from the Caribbean, they're getting pretty much the full support of the region. The
All
let's
right,
go to
that's great to
Anglophone
hear.
Caribbean.
I sure Danico is there nodding with me. Yeah, that's good to hear that she's getting that positive energy across the region. Really see any sort of negative pushback you have found in your experiences? People speaking like, "We're Rihanna. She's just a Barbadian thing. That's nothing to do with us." Or she is it's generally embraced, as you said before.
One of the things that I like to touch on is a lot of people have commented on the globalization and commercialization of Caribbean music in particular, and Rihanna's portrayal of that. So that has been a big issue. But my main concern is, why do we have to assume that we can't get both together? Why can't Caribbean musicians and artists and so on not be global superstars, but at the same time represent authentic Caribbean music? And I guess that Rihanna has been a hot topic on that segment in particular because she's not just Caribbean, but she's also a Black woman, an icon, and it has layers to it as well. So that's just something that I've noticed.
All right. So you bring up the idea of this globalization of Caribbean music, which leads me to my next question now. As we start to get warm in this discussion, I have done a bit of my research on Rihanna and doing some interviews with local practitioners. One of them was very adamant that the Rihanna experience, in fact, and her success has nothing to do with Barbados. Rihanna is, in fact, a global brand that happens to be from Barbados. And the things that we attribute to her success, um, bear little to the actual creative products created, made here indigenously. When I say that, her music does not embrace any of the indigenous forms. Other than her accent, she can be from anywhere. There's nothing identifiable within her sonic output that speaks to this idea of a certain Barbadian identity. How do you guys respond to that?
Uh, oh wow.
In other words, Rihanna ain't got nothing to do with us. Has nothing to do with us. She's a global brand. It's like if somebody goes to McDonald's and McDonald's says you are CEO, you become the CEO, and you happen to be from Barbados. So it's a global product that has not been repackaged and sold. It has nothing to do with the indigenous Barbadian experience.
I'm gonna touch on that like really quickly, and then I'll give it away to the actual Barbadian. um,
Ah!
so
I,
as
I,
a
I'm sorry, you can expand that. You can expand that to the Caribbean experience because much of her output, which really propelled her, other than the first album, was globally based. It was dance, techno, nothing really indigenous about it. Other
right.
well, you say Mandong, etc. But generally, the body of her work, which made her famous and global, does not reflect the Caribbean experience. So, over to you, Ariane.
Okay, so if we want to specifically focus on the music, then I'll have to agree. It's quite obvious for us to say that the influence is technically not, Caribbean. However, Rihanna as a brand without Barbados, without the Caribbean, she would not exist. And there are many elements to a brand, especially nowadays. We know that musicians have to be a brand. You can't just be a singer. You can't just be a drummer. You have to have an entire brand about you, the way that you speak, having different, having access talent. So, she started acting at one point. She got into fashion, makeup, and all of these other things. So there are different elements to this one person, this one brand. And I think it's not fair to say that, to try to separate her from her identity, a part of her identity, which is being Bayesian, being from the Caribbean. So I would disagree, um, trying to separate the two, but I will say that yes, the music that we have gotten from her thus far, for the most part, would be more of an international sound, and that's perfectly fine because there are different elements to a brand, to a person.
I
All right, so you're saying they're different. Come
Yeah,
in,
go ahead.
Danico. I will. I don't want to intervene. I want you guys talk. You guys take it
Okay,
over here. Let me
I
hear you
would
guys.
say we have to acknowledge that influence is a big thing when we speak about international and global. We usually refer to this sense of a Western ideology, and thus so it is. I agree with Ariane. When if we speak about the music itself, yeah, there aren't much indigenous roots there, but we also need to understand that there is a moment where you have to kind of when we speak about global and international and the standards that are to be upheld if you were to make it successful as a global artist, you kind of have to conform to certain ways of being. And the special thing about Rihanna is that even though she conformed in such areas as music, yeah, not necessarily indigenous, she has always tried to bring a Caribbean element to it, whether through speech, through lyrics, or through beat itself. And I think that then you shouldn't really separate her. Um, you can't really separate the two because, as Ariane said, I agree. She's a brand. There are many different layers to a brand. But when we then speak about globalization, we need to understand that that is influence. In order to become that of which is successful international and globally, you have to adapt to certain circumstances. As unfortunately, some people go as far as forgetting their entire identity as to who they are in the beginning in order to make it. And then there are people like Rihanna who has tried different things and still felt the need to come back and represent the Caribbean in in her work. And I think that that is important to recognize. So yeah, that's me.
If I may, touching on this topic, I feel like we as a group right here, we recognize that the Caribbean is such a melting pot of identities and ideas. There's the Western idea, there's African, there's Indian, and that's part of our history. But one of the main concerns of Caribbean musicians is the assimilation of foreign influences, namely the Western metaculture, which has altered Caribbean music. We have to be realistic here. So it becomes very difficult to detach the idea of Caribbean music from different music forms because that's the way that the music gets out there in the first place. Popular culture, for example, has ensured that so many cycles have occurred before Caribbean music could be morphed into something that the public or the wider public or the global world can understand as palatable. Take soca, for instance. But what Rihanna has done is stay true to her culture, as Danico rightly pointed out in her identity. Keeping her accent, for one, is something that is so impactful for Caribbean people as a whole. Coming back to the Caribbean, revisiting the Caribbean for carnival season and everything like that has surely brought together her sense of connectiveness to her homeland and the Caribbean as a whole.
Right.
I
S-
just want to add something.
Continue.
There's a concern about international music, or this is what I'm understanding from what you said, international music impacting Caribbean music or something of that nature. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I just want to point out the idea, or the fact, I should say, that that influence has technically always been there. As you said, it is a melting pot, but there was a point in time where um, musicians here, artists here, took influences from other places. I could think of jazz as one, to create new sounds in our region. So there's always been this, again, globalization, this appeal of taking things, and as we are Caribbean people, very resourceful, taking things from elsewhere, putting it together to make something new, something great, something that's our own. So I think that that interplay has always been there, and I don't like the idea of us focusing so much on it now. I get why people would do it. However, it's always been there. We've always been able to, create our own things out of influences from elsewhere. And other people have taken our things, and, you know, we hear lyrics now, from R&B singers, from hip hop artists, taking reggae lyrics, dancehall lyrics, soca lyrics, and using it in their music. So there's always been this interplay. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thanks for that contribution. Um, and that further expands on Ralycia's point. But the issue that the practitioner was trying to get at, and one of the issues that we need to also not necessarily gloss over, is the fact that Rihanna's success was not in any way sponsored by the capital. Came from the West. Um, the She was removed from the Caribbean space as well, the physical Caribbean space. And then her success through the various media channels, the global channels, was all facilitated by Western corporate money. So his argument was that is the exact same scenario, the exploitation of black labor and black bodies by capital that is outside of the region, that he said it fitted into a trope that has been going on for years, right? So how do you guys respond to that? Especially when it comes to the ideas of the nation. He says there's nothing about her success that was in fact propelled by the people, the Barbadian people. How do you respond to that?
Um, I,
Especially
I,
his historical association with this been going on for years, the exploitation of black labor.
woo, okay. Um, Unpopular opinion, probably not. But I feel as though we we know. I don't think that we personally, as in Barbados, personally had a play in her success. And yes, it was opportunities of it being available elsewhere, and global media, mainstream media, that made her success powerful. Um, that made her success what it is. And I think that it is we as a country, as a nation, admittedly, we find it difficult to represent our own unless we really see that they are going to be something. And so we don't necessarily um, push or support in the way that we could, whether that be lack of resources, or what you may have it that we are able to put in place to help propel that person. I think that, yes, honestly, it took Rihanna leaving here and being exposed and developed over there in order to represent the Caribbean as a whole. We are grateful, and completely lucky that she has not changed so drastically that she becomes unrecognizable as a person from the Caribbean, as we are all praising her for her authenticity and being rooted in her Caribbean roots. However, to go as far as to speak as at the exploitation of Black persons, by using, what was the word I'm looking for? By using foreign finance, I think it could be a little stretched because we don't have the resources here. Honestly, we don't have the resources here. I don't think anybody's being exploited because she is also being paid for her art. She's in a place where she's currently a billionaire because she was over there. She established a lot over there. She was able to develop herself further over there. I don't think that she would have done that well had she stayed here. I don't think that we would have been able to give her the support that she needed to become the person that she is today. And that's why we can't say, or anyone can say, that Barbados necessarily made Rihanna, because, well, we really didn't. She was born here, she showcased talent, and that talent is what was able to propel her to higher heights. And she was fortunate enough to be able to do that. We have a lot of artists here who are extremely talented, and due to lack of resources and funding and even emotional support for the arts, financial support for the arts is a heavy hindrance in our development as artists. So I disagree that this is a whole theme of black exploitation in her case. Yeah.
All right. So this follows on, and before again the others, because this follows on into now the problem now. When you say that, okay, Rihanna has been made through the global system and she's done really well in the capitalist institutions, etc., etc., then what does it where position does it put in the state as it makes her now a national hero, which comes into our segment too, because the state has been for years through its various institutions and the way it practices its own form of nationalist identity through schools. You learn songs in Bajan dialect. You're given heroes. You're shown that by being a Barbadian, working within the Barbadian space, that you can achieve. You're also shown that as part of your nationalist identity is to have your own drive, have your own means, and have your own way of being successful using the resources that are here. Um, the state has also set up its identity in opposition to Americanization and global culture. That's why they spend so much time teaching the children the folk songs so they won't lose their identity. We hear this all the time. So when you now propel an icon who is the epitome of the Americanization of the global success as a national hero, where does now put your nationalist project? No, are you telling young people, okay, you need to go over there in order to be successful? You need their capital. You need to be follow their rules and say exactly what they want you to say in order to be a global success. That is the identity you need to have, and then still maintain your Barbadian accent, and then you're good to go. That's what the type of citizens we want to be building. That's because when you put somebody as a national hero, you're saying this is the par exemple of where I want my citizens, what I want them to do. So it's that the pattern then the state is now saying we should all follow. We should all leave here, take our American capital, take our American jobs, and then be seen as success. That is where Caribbean citizens ought to go. Is that what you guys think? The by making our national hero, that is a statement that's being made.
In my opinion, no. I think that you are just solidifying or putting a better foundation on what you said earlier about how the nationalist agenda is telling you to use the resources that you have to get to where you need to go. So you are Barbadian through and through. You've learned the folk songs. You eat flying fish and cuckoo. You do it all. But whatever resources you have, you take advantage of those to get to where you have to go. And you continuously be Barbadian through and through, and you propel anyone else who's Barbadian with you as you go along. So, no, I don't think that that is the idea that they are trying to get across. And in addition to that, I feel like there has always been throughout the region, I'm going to talk about the region now, throughout the region, this idea that you have to leave your space in order to make it elsewhere. And so the Barbadian government or the national agenda didn't need to even say that because there are some people who just believe that regardless. But in my humble opinion, I don't think that that is what is being projected. I think that they're just saying, hey, this is someone, again, who came from the humble beginnings. Um, and has been said in this conversation, she has been Barbadian. She has kept the accent. She comes back when she can. She pushes the culture through her social media when she can. So I don't think that is what they're projecting. That you need to go abroad to the U.S. or to elsewhere in order to be successful.
Kind of coming off of Arian's point, I definitely think that this is going to propel not just Barbados, but a lot of Caribbean nations in taking more notice of individuals who are interested in the culture and creative arts. Because Rihanna wasn't just recognized globally, but recognized within her home country, and then that got broadcasted to other territories. So it just shows you the extent at which an individual can achieve their goals by being recognized and being given all the opportunities within their home country first, and being given that appreciation, that sense of homeland, that sense of belonging. And even in preparation for this talk, I actually went and looked up the what exactly is a national hero. I mean, if we're going to have a discussion about Rihanna within that context, we have to know. And the words that kept popping up was like servant leadership, honorable, somebody who gives back to the community. The word sacrifice kept popping up all the time. And when you look at the national heroes for other countries in the Caribbean, you have those same kind of individuals coming again. So Rihanna, as a young woman in today's society, today's modern society, a young black woman is just going to steamroll basically, or allow the Caribbean to fast forward in a sense a lot of individuals within the industry.
All right. Those are very good responses, guys. I'm just putting out here. These are not necessarily my beliefs. These are part of getting this discussion flowing and hearing what you guys have to say as we try to use the cultural studies word of problematizing, making things issues and discussing them, right? So just that's my disclaimer. Please do not edit this out, reader. Leave that in. That's my disclaimer. But carrying on further though, because we don't necessarily want to make the assumption that everyone is happy with this decision. Because Rihanna, as I said before, her global success, it means through which was done, there are some who are very, very, very disconcerted by this because they do not see the what Rihanna represents as being the traditional mode or the identity they're accustomed to. Um, for one, let's take a look at her dress. The controversy that came up from that appearance at the ceremony. Rihanna was braless, and that caused a huge, massive discussion. What you guys think about that? You guys are from a different generation than I am. How do you respond to that? For those people saying, how we can make her a national hero, she does not even wear bras. You guys want to
Get
come in
over
here and
yourself.
speak to that?
I just want to
Get over
note that
yourself.
Arianne and I both took a very deep sigh at the end of that question.
Listen, my response, Dr. Walcott, get over yourselves. We have done everything over the years in such a patriarchal society to restrict women to the most minute details. So much so that Rihanna cannot wear a dress and not have on a bra. And that is such a controversial and such a discussed topic. And I just think that I'm like, okay, but her credentials, what she has achieved, shows way more than the dress that she is wearing. Like I personally believe that before we even considered her to be a national hero, we understood who she was. She showcased who she was. She showcased the sort of person that she was, the sort of music that she would portray. Rihanna has songs that discusses the topic of sex. She clearly shows that she's the woman who embraces her sexuality and womanhood in many different forms and fashions, and that's one of the reasons people love her because of that rebelliousness that a lot of people don't expect from women and a black woman on top of that. So of course, the majority of the people I believe that have a problem with it, unfortunately, are the older generations who stick primarily to tradition. And that's so I just say, get over yourselves. I feel like it's 20, well, when she became national hero status, that was 2021. I feel like it is now 2022. It's just not that serious. That's not the issue here. That's not the problem here. That's not what we are not saying, oh, we're going to hand her national hero status because, or we shouldn't because, oh my gosh, she didn't wear a bra on this day. Oh my gosh. Like, it's just unnecessary nitpicking. And I feel as though you need to come with a more solid reason for why you don't want her to be a national hero, regardless of how she dressed. That's just my opinion.
I'm in agreement. I think it stems from the idea of, I'm going to call it respectability politics, I guess. If you go to, and I don't know if it's still the same in places in Barbados, but I remember trying to go to maybe it was the Supreme Court building. I can't remember, but I was trying to look for information on my great grandfather. And at the time, I think there were some documents in the Supreme Court building. I can't remember which building, guys, but somewhere. Anyway, I wore this shirt, right? The shirt had sleeves. It was fine, but the back was like a little low cut. And when I tell you a little low cut, like not a regular, like the shirt all the way up here, it's like maybe 2 inches below my shoulders in the back. They told me I can't come into the building. So it reminded me of how at home there are certain government buildings you cannot go into if you have on a shirt that doesn't have on sleeves, or if you have on shorts that are too short, or if a man has on a tank top. So I think it stems from those colonial ideas, respectable respectable way to dress, and not necessarily where we don't think that Rihanna, because she's not wearing a bra, should get this title type of thing. I think the older generations have adopted this idea that there's a certain way you should dress. We used to be wearing suits in the Caribbean in the hot heat. We wearing suits to work. I remember when before I started working remotely, thank God for remote work, I used to have to wear stockings with a full suit. I sweating going to work. And you want me to wear a full face of makeup. Come on now. We really,
I
we
would
really have to problematize this idea of respectable dressing, whatever that means.
Mm. I would definitely have to say that outward appearance does not determine human spirit. Why are we so focused on whether or not she wore a bra? It has been an ongoing thing within both the colonial and post-colonial societies within the Caribbean, where Black women are being told that they can't dress a certain way, or women in general are being told that they can't dress a certain way. Take up Sarah Batman, for example, which is one of the most popular examples of Black women being hypersexualized in society. Michelle Obama, getting into office, she was told that she looked mannish because of her arms. It's simple things that make it so ridiculous to think that this woman who has done so much in our society is being criticized just because she didn't wear undergarments, which is something that you should not be focusing on in the first place, because that was not the point of the ceremony. So it does irk me a bit as a young Black woman. And as Arianne said, there are so many things. You have to wear suits in the hot heat here in the Caribbean. There's piercings, there's hair, there's makeup. There's so many things that you have to be conscious of as a young Black woman in any space. So it's a troublesome topic for us.
All right. Thanks for those contributions again. Fantastic. I'm really enjoying this conversation actually. But guys, I just can't get you guys go. And we pass on this topic. We are in the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts, and guys, generally, people tend to have similar perspectives, right? And it's obvious that we have a full agreement when it comes to that. But let us now take a step out of our circles, out of our comfort zones. Let us leave our particular algorithm that we're currently in and recognize that it's not only the old people that had an issue with this. There is a very vocal, conservative, Christian presence within Barbados. that consists of the young, the old, the middle aged who had a serious problem with this. And they are saying that Rihanna does not reflect her values. And my question to you guys is a very simple one. Should a national hero be reflective or consolidate the values of the nation or he or she represents? Um, so why should my national hero be someone that does not share my values, promote my values, especially when the nation on the other hand comes out and says it is a Christian nation, it is part of who we are. And as a Christian saying, yes, I agree with you, but yet you come and make Rihanna a national hero. How is this cultural studies word alert? How is this ambivalence now? how is how is this going to be consolidated? How's it going to be? How are we going to put these two ideas together? Let me get you guys in here on that one again.
Lovely question. Give me one moment to think.
I have no, I have not paralyzed the panel. Or not paralyzed because let me fill the space while you guys think. Because really, so you made a very valid point. Is the Caribbean consists of a multitude of ideas, and we managed to bring in the Americanization. And you said that's the overall Barbarian identity, so many things. But the Christian element is also a very big part of people's lived experiences, right? Within the Caribbean, it has been for hundreds of years. So, how does a national hero now come to not represent those Christian values in the public space that's broadcast globally from a nation that has been um, declared itself to be a Christian space?
Danico, any comment?
I let me try, man. Let me try. I think that, well, then in that case, then if because I didn't even really think about that before, it was just like, oh yeah, Rihanna, oh yeah, predominantly Christian society, so we say. But for me, since that's the case, then it only means one thing: we are clearly slowly but surely moving past that narrative, because I am just like, okay, there, as you said, there are conservative Christian communities that believe, if she's going to be our national hero, then she has to reflect the values and the morals that we ourselves we hold. My question then is, all the other heroes included, I am trying to figure out how deeply did we even know them? Because I'm pretty
There's
sure
no
that
social
there was
media.
probably some adultery going on in there, and nobody didn't know about it from any for both male and female. We don't know these
Are
people that
are
deep.
you casting rumors about Bussa? What are you
Ah,
saying about my national heroes?
not
Listen,
butter.
listen, what I am,
Not
listen,
Bussa.
I am not Buster. Oh no, no, I am just, listen. I am just saying, you really and truly do not know the people. Listen, everything is an act, whether authentic or not. So at the end of the day, you are obviously going to put forward your best self. So to even acclaim national hero status, there you have to have certain things about you that the public and the people at the time, or the prime minister at the time, who assign this title to you, that there's something about you that you've either done for the nation, or it comes down to what you have done. But then at the end of the day, you can't then speak about morals and values because you don't know those people deeply. You don't know what happens to them behind closed doors, or what they do behind closed doors. Not necessarily that it's bad. I am just saying we need to understand we don't know these people personally. I'm a huge fan of Rihanna. I don't know her personally. Like, I don't know what she into, what she not into. What I can say though is that I've seen what she has done, and that speaks a lot more for me than anything else, really. So I guess to the conservative Christians, again, I would just say get over yourself. That's just how I feel about a lot of things. I'm just like, get over yourself, because at the end of the day, nobody is perfect. Everybody has their own flaws. Everybody has these things about them that probably would not be quote unquote respected by others, but the work speaks for itself. Her work has speak for itself. Her contribution, her hustle, her hardships, everything that she's been through, that she has allowed us to see, and that the media has allowed us to see, because that's a big factor to what is being presented in front of us. What is being presented in front of us clearly speaks very highly of her. And that's the reason she has the status that she holds. Not because we know the deepest parts of her life and what she does behind closed doors that we can say, you know what? Even when she is by herself, she is this and that person. This is why she should or should not get it. Like, we give people these status or these high recognitions because we just acknowledge that there's something about them that is greater than us. That the things that they do are greater than themselves. And I am just like that should just be it. That should be enough to recognize that the reason we give these people such standards is because they have done something that is beyond themselves that contributes to the whole nation in some form or fashion. And that's just what she has done. So because she don't go to church on a Sunday, that's what, you know, because she doesn't showcase that she's an active Christian in the community and all that. Like I mean, honestly, who cares? They do. I don't. But who cares? You know what I mean? Like I'm just not that like it's unnecessary.
So what they would respond to you, I don't want to belabor this anymore. I think we've pretty much discussed this as best we could. But what they
Yes,
would
please.
respond to you is, you said that you don't know what she doesn't do. You only know what she has done, and that's what they would say. We know what
Mm-mm.
Rihanna has done, and what she has done is appear in public with a way of portraying herself that they would never do, and that does not sit with their Christian beliefs. They know what she
Lecky,
does, what she has done.
Justin.
They're not worried about her private life. They're worried about the public representation of Rihanna, her way, the way she portrays sexuality. She
The
has been
hypocrisy.
seen smoking, taking illegal drugs as well too. All of these things play into their non-acceptance of the cultural icon national hero status that has been
Mm.
designated to Rihanna. That's how they will respond to you. They know what she's done too. And to them, it does not sit well. And that just to me shows the problem of the nation itself, how the state manages to try to bring someone, even as a national hero, that's representative of all of these people, right? And speaking of all of these people, do you want to come in there, Danico, before we move on to our
I'm just
third
like, well,
segment?
are they the same people who elected me Motley?
Yes, there
You
are
know,
the same people, but
okay.
there was
Also, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
right, but Rihanna was not elected. Rihanna was placed upon them.
No, that's understandable. My thing is, for me, Mia also, if we are going based on public notion, Mia has also done things that are on that does not follow or is a person that does not follow the necessary status quo of the church. As a person who has advocated in some form or fashion for LGBT rights and recognition, even just the smallest, it wasn't grand, but even in the smallest way, I'm just like, okay, but that in itself contradicts what the morals and the values are of these conservative Christians. So then my thing is, yeah, I get that, but I get that Rihanna was not elected, but y'all actively elected Mia Motley. That's my point. Y'all actively elected Mia Motley. So then to then come and say you should not make Rihanna this because she does not reflect our morals and values is a little contradicting. Because that means that you need to, for all the heads of Barbados that we allow to lead us, which a part of those voters are the Christian community, and if we are going to say that we're a highly Christian community, then that means that the vast majority of us voted for Mia Motley, voted for the way that she runs. And the reason we voted Mia Motley has nothing to do with her sexuality. We voted that woman in because we believe in her as a woman, as the prime minister, and her ability to create change. So then, on top of that, why is that same rhetoric then not applied to Rihanna? Even though we can actively acknowledge the things and the contributions that she has done for the Caribbean and for the region, why is that same notion then not given to her. But yet our prime minister, the one we actually went out of our way to elect, you see my point?
I do see
We
your point. It's a
actively
very
went out of
strong
our way
point,
to elect
and
someone
it
that
is
goes
a
to
very
the
right, and it's a very strong point. Which brings us
yeah.
now to the legacy now, because we have a certain legacy um, issue that we have to deal with. We mentioned, or you guys mentioned before, what it means to your lives, and you're young. Um, you have the future ahead of you. You're very young. So how you see Rihanna playing into your whole life's work, and what does that mean? That sort of inspiration that you guys spoke to. Um, but let's bring it home a bit. Um, do you see or have you seen any opportunities within the creative arts sector now? Because the faculty of creative arts, that's who is paying the bills for this. Do you see any sort of legacy, any sort of benefit to the global success to young artists that has been brought to the Barbados or to the region by Rihanna's success? Ralycia, you want to take that one? I haven't heard you in a while.
I think that the publication of Rihanna being a national hero is something that is, as I said earlier, is going to put a lot of things in motion in terms of the appreciation of culture and heritage and society and music and the arts, etc. So that is building on the sustainability of the Caribbean region, and it's going to more so push other Caribbean countries as well to put forth their young people in particular, because Rihanna does appeal to, we have to be realistic here. She does appeal to a younger audience. So there are going to be younger individuals who are going to look at this commendation and say, maybe that's something that I can do. Because I know personally for myself, I'm Vincentian, and our national hero, and rightly deserved, is Joseph Satuye Chatoye. And he is someone who has fought for the for Vincentians and the Garifuna people in particular. And although he is our national hero and I appreciate him dearly, it's not exactly something a lot of young people or younger than me can see and relate to. Because, for one, a lot of the Caribbean's history is not really documented. So they're not going to get all that information all at once. But this is something that they're actively seeing on television, they're actively hearing. Well, I don't want to say radio because a lot of young people, let's be honest, they don't really listen to radio that much. But something they're scrolling through TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and what have you, and they're seeing the headlines. So it's going to bring their attention to a new form of self-identification. It's going to bring themselves to a new form of saying, I'm Caribbean, I'm Black, I'm, whether you're an Afro-descendant, you're Afro-Indigenous identity, or you're Indian, you're from the Caribbean region, and you see this person who has done so much, and they have reached this level of critical acclaim in the newspapers, etc. And maybe this is something that I can strive for. It gives them hope. And I believe that a lot of individuals in the Caribbean is notoriously a region that has been experimented with and brought down in terms of our culture, our history, our heritage, every aspect of it. And this is basically turning over a new rock and opening up a new avenue for young people to actually say, this is something that I strive for, this is my identity, and something to claim without shame. So that's what I believe that Rihanna's commendations are actually going to be doing for Barbados and the region as a whole. And of course, sorry, this extends to the faculty as well in terms of representing young cultural activists and musicians and dancers like ourselves.
All right. So on that excellent point you made, Ralycia. But before we close, let me just ask this now more on the material side of things now. We are aware that the inspiration she brings has a psychological type of impact. But the actual material, like what Rihanna will inspire young artists to do, um, shows now what I referred to in the first point and what the anti Rihanna person was speaking to the artist that I spoke with, the practitioner in the beginning. because the funding that has been issued and that is continually issued by government organizations, state organizations in Barbados, by Caribbean organizations, different ministries of culture. All of it supports young artists doing music that does not, or doing art that does not look like what Rihanna does. So you will not get a funding grant, right? To say you're going to produce a music video in New York, right? You will not get it. You will get a funding grant to say I am doing a John Canoe, because we have our Bahamian friend here. We're doing a John Canoe band mixed with rap. You will get a funding grant for that. So therefore, the state, to me, I don't know what you guys think. Do you think the state then should be more open in terms of what it funds young artists with? Is that what the Rihanna event and her rise is telling us? Or should certain indigenous genres continue to get more support than other global ones, especially for young artists? So the state will say, okay, you're doing what Rihanna's doing. Here's $5,000, or it doesn't matter in terms of the output. Is that what Rihanna is telling us?
That is a really good question. As far as funding is concerned, I do think that traditional, indigenous, um, national, local cultures should be funded. Um, I'm not going to say if I think it should be funded more so than, you know, anyone who's doing any international music or international dance, et cetera, et cetera. However, I do think that we should place some importance on our local cultures, especially as Ralycia said, it's largely undocumented. And so if we continue down that path, then eventually, our cultures will kind of, and I know culture is dynamic, so we don't have to problematize, but our cultures will kind of, um, I want to use the right word so that Dr. Walcott doesn't problematize what I'm about to say, but I'm just gonna say what comes to mind.
Evolve?
So cultures don't die out.
Oh.
Um, so I do think that we should be funding people who decide that they want to focus on our local, national, Caribbean cultures, etc. But I do think that there should be money set aside to fund those who just want to be in the creative and cultural industries. And whether that means that these people have to look externally for the funding, then I'm here to help them with that because that's actually what I do in my business. But um, maybe we should do like a 50-50 thing, or maybe the government should have like a 60 for local cultures and 40% for anybody in the creative and cultural industries, or they could incentivize the private sector to fund the people who want to do international things. But I do think that there's space and need for both to be funded and promoted. Um, yeah, that's where I'm going to end it.
Listen, local production, local culture is for me so important. And I think that we just simply do not have enough funding for that. We treat our culture very poorly in the name of international, in the name of globalization. I think personally that we don't take time to ensure that we are good. So I feel as though Arianne, you looking at me
I want to
a
ask
little.
you so many questions right now. Because, okay, so again, I got to spend 5 years in Barbados, and technically I still live there, but I'm just visiting somewhere else right now. But one of the things, especially that I loved about Barbados, is how much funding and
Girl,
attention y'all put into Barbadian culture. So for you to say that, I'm just like, I'm astounded because I'm coming from a place where we do not invest at all. You at least get some funding from the National Lottery. You have the NCF, a whole organization dedicated to culture. you have a whole non-governmental, or I guess it's like a government partnership private thing going on, but you have a whole organization. We have nothing. We getting scraps, like literally
Listen,
scraps. We don't
this
even
may
have a cultural policy.
considering that you just said what you said, this as a Barbadian may probably sound a little spoiled, considering that you just said that y'all have nothing. But listen, even though we have literally a whole institution dedicated to culture, I just feel as though personally, this is me, and I said it out loud. They don't do enough. They don't do enough.
That's fair.
I
That's
am a dancer. I am a dancer. I'm a good one at that. I get paid jobs to be a dancer, and I'm telling you, it is the hardest, one of the hardest hustles as a cultural practitioner in Barbados, because when we do put on our cultural products, they aren't for us, and then they're always altered to be a tourism product. So we don't
Don't
ever.
get me
What
started.
also has me, what also has me is that I truly believe that once you, the orange economy is so impactful. If you look at, this sounds terrible considering that we're trying to Caribbean all that, but like facts are facts, and the reality is that Europe, when it comes to their cultural industry, they expand, they invest. And I'm just like, you know what? They come here for something different. We think that we need to put on for them
For
what they
them,
already get
for
overseas in
them.
order for them to come here. But I'm just like, they come here for our culture. If you simply invest in your orange economy, I promise you the economic benefits of it would be enormous. If you fall, and that means you have to put out some cash, but and the amount that you would receive back, I don't think that we need to create a tourism package. What the hell is that? I feel as though personally, invest in your if you are going to if you are going to have hotels that have entertainment, bro, that is the head time to showcase a Barbadian package, Barbadian culture, who we are as a people. That's what they come to see. That's what they're paying for. They're not paying to see a European package repackaged, rebranded with a Caribbean twist on it. Like, who wants to see that? Like, when I travel
But
somewhere else,
but
I don't
but
necessarily want
but
to
but
see.
let me stop you here,
One.
Danico, only
But
because
I
time is
have
getting
one
short. But you
point.
said, yeah, it bring you in. No, really, I'm bringing you know, but I just want to stop me here because you said they do not want to see a a a product repackaged that sounds like them, that just has a Caribbean tinge. But that is what
Mm.
Rihanna is. Rihanna is a package, a global package that has a Caribbean tinge. Bring you on here, dear Ralycia. That is something for Danico to think about. Yes.
Woo!
I just wanted to say, and I'm sorry. I kind of agree with Arian, but at the same time, I'm on the Nico side just a little bit because I'm coming from a
Me and you on the
country.
same
First of
side.
all, I I want to study biological and cultural anthropology, which is why I'm doing a biology major with a minor in cultural studies, right? But when I had proposed for this and I was applying for scholarships, it was a lot of people telling me focus on biology alone. Why are you going to study culture? That makes no sense. But in my society, there are no. I identify as Garifuna. I identify as indigenous. That's my blood. But there are no Garifuna anthropologists on the island. We are learning our culture from what has been told through Eurocentric history. Our culture isn't being taught in schools. We are still learning about Christopher Columbus. We don't have Garifuna songs in our schools. But Danico, you have folk songs, you have landship, you have so many things at your fingertips. But at the same time, I do understand where you're coming from in saying that they can do more and marketing the Caribbean as the Caribbean, not some washed down version, not as the West Indies, but as the Caribbean as a whole and the Caribbean islands, not just something that you stick on a poster somewhere and they say, hey, come here, we have white sand or black sand beaches. But I see where you're coming from. And my country, we recently had a board of individuals elected to UNESCO. I'm sorry, area, but it's interesting to see where this is going to go because St. Vincent is not popular in terms of the indigenous culture, which is where we should begin with, which is where a lot of Caribbean countries, just like Barbados, should begin with instead of trying to just, brush it aside, saying that we've lived that enslaved life or that exiled life or a lot of things have happened and slavery is so long gone, but it still dictates how we perceive ourselves in modern day society. So it's not gone, it's very much present. So I definitely believe, as Danico said, there is plus to investing in culture and heritage because the turnarounds are just invaluable in terms of cultural and not just intangible history, but make something that we can touch and feel and document in terms of, I know, Danico, you're an exceptional dancer. We need to record those dances more. We need to have those dances featured more. It's just not something to be locked away in a studio somewhere. We need to put it out there.
So there brings the final to me, the ambivalence, the two contrary views that need to coexist or are forced to coexist with Rihanna. Because what you guys are saying, invest in your indigenous culture, bring the real what we see here. You don't need to do anything else. But why? The person said, but you just told me at the beginning of this conversation, Rihanna was a exceptional product because she had a capitalist backing that she's successful. She should be celebrated for that. Then why, as a person putting money into it, do I need to put money in the indigenous arts? Because my par exemple, my perfect national hero did it without the investment. She didn't do any indigenous products. She didn't bother with Landship and Mother Sally. We don't see Rihanna with a Mother Sally and umbrella. Ella A, and she's doing her Mother Sally moves. Why, therefore, should you guys get $10 from me? Because that's not the
Because
way we're
Dr.
going.
Walcott,
Because my national hero did it without any of that. Go to the States, y'all. Leave me alone. Responses.
because Dr. Walcott, listen, the reality is the reason she had to leave is because of lack of investment in local culture. The lack of investment in arts and culture. She had no choice. Let's be realistic. She had no choice. It's not like she had options. So of
Is it
course,
that she wanted to be a global superstar, which is different than being a functioning artist, and she had no interest in doing Mother Sally or Landship? Is that the reason why she left? Or the reason why she left is actually as opposed to not having any sort of funding?
probably both.
Do we really know?
Who knows?
Do
But,
we
that, but
really
that's
know?
my thing. We
Well,
don't
okay,
really know.
I
So
just
we
want to
don't.
interject, not being Barbadian here. When I think about one of the nations in our region who has been able to propel uh, quite a number of their artists into the international stage without them having to adjust to an international sound, Jamaica. They heavily invested in their creative and cultural industries. I think that it was Edward Siaga who put a little bit more intent behind them developing a Jamaican sound. And so they were able to invest more into branding their sound. And so if you go to Japan, they're playing reggae and dancehall in Japan. They got dance halls in Japan, in other Asian countries, everywhere you go. Now, it may be attributed to a number of factors, like the fact that Jamaicans everywhere, their population is so large, they all over the place, so they have so they have the influence on the ground as well as with their branding and following the trails of people like Bob Marley and such. But as was said, they invested in their local culture, their local sound, developing what it means to have a reggae sound, a ska, steady, dancehall, rock steady, dancehall, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that Rihanna, I'm gonna call her an exception to the rule. We don't know. I don't know why she left. Whether that was because of a lack of funding or she really wanted to do pop or R&B. I don't know. However, I do think there is merit in investing more in the local cultures, local cultural expressions, but that goes along with so many different aspects of investing in the local cultural expression. That's you as a country marketing it in all of your marketing collateral. If we want to talk about tourism, which don't get me started, me and tourism in the way that we do it here in the region. Ugh. Anyway, so if we want to talk about tourism, um, pushing our local cultural expressions within those that marketing collateral that we put out there, branding ourselves as Mother Sally Landship and all of these things, so that people become familiar with it. And then when we have ambassadors like Rihanna go out, they would be doing the Landship and the Mother Sally and all of these other things. So I agree with what was said, and I can't remember what was said.
Right. So before we close, I'm going to get the closing remarks now. Let me just say the Jamaican myth, as they called it, when it comes to Caribbean people, how it's viewed. The Jamaican government did not invest nearly as much as we like to think it did. It's pretty much a passenger, a hands-off type of observer when it comes to Jamaican music. A lot of the capital came from outside, much is the same as Rihanna, as well too, as you suggested, the large diaspora who moved to big cities brought their music culture, which was then heard by the capitalist institutions, the large multinationals, those investors with money, and then they invested in Jamaican music. So the Jamaican government has been a passive observer in the whole process. Jamaica still does not have a lot of the funding facilities. They do not have a national home of the arts. They do not have a large-scale performance center that you guys have. So there's a lot of underinvestment when it comes from the Jamaican government to the arts. A lot of underinvestment, and it happens. I like to call it. It was the work of the working class Kingstonians that brought Jamaicans' culture to prominence, along with the investment from outside. That is my view on that's the facts when it comes to Jamaican culture. Just need to debunk that myth. But let's now wind down and let me give you guys the last word here. In 30 years time, when you guys have your kids, your grandkids, or not, as the case may be, but when you see the next generation, what do you think they would say about Rihanna at this particular moment? And and even further on, does this now, as Danico was saying, mark the watershed moment in terms of how Caribbean identity is viewed? Do you think now we're moving into a new generation of Caribbean culture? And what do you think 30 years down the line you will, in your old age, or even your kids or grandkids, what do you think they'll be saying about this particular moment now in Rihanna and her national hero status? And Rihanna in general, really.
I could go first. Iconic. Period. An iconic moment. I think that in years to come, I feel like this decision will be a stepping stone in where we go. I think that this speaks to how we can make a difference in our own society. I think that this title and this moment in history, and we let's not forget that we got to be alive when something major as Rihanna, who's a billionaire, a black woman from the Caribbean, from Barbados specifically, became the youngest national hero currently. And I felt as though that is such a stepping stone for us as in our culture and in our society. And yes, we could possibly debate, is she a product of Barbados, or is she just a Western product with Caribbean heritage? Like, we could debate all of that, but we can't deny that this is a historical, iconic moment. As I said in the beginning, this is cultural progression. I feel as though this is good for us because this shows us, who the generation now taking over, what we can do when we really invest in ourselves, when we really invest in culture and arts, when we really make those international relations, when we put our identity and ourselves first and not on the back burner. I think that generations from now, I would be able, or years from now, sorry, I'll be able to look back and tell my kids, my friends' kids, whoever, because I'll be the rich uncle, whoever. I just think that I would say it is because of this moment that we have grown. Our cultural landscape has grown. I would love to be able to say that. I am one of those people. I'm sure, along with my wonderful colleagues on this panel discussion, we are fighting for a better cultural landscape in some form or fashion. And Rihanna's status and this award that she has just lit a fire under us, and we want to continue to do more, and we will do more. So yeah, that's what I would say.
All right. Thank you for that, Danico. Ariane?
I completely agree, Danico. I think that I would just add that what you said, 30 years from now, I'll be old and gray.
30 years from
Um,
now, when I'll be
but
when I'll be 50.
you younger than me? So my great grandchildren, I will be in my little rocking chair telling them another story, and they can be like, "Oh, Grandma, you don't tell us this story about how Rihanna was a national icon and this, that, and the next thing." But I will remind them that that was around the time where the floodgates were open, and we see more and more Caribbean artists getting the acclaim that they should get, getting the exposure that they should get, getting the funding that they should get, because people like myself and my two panelists here are putting in the work for them to be able to do so. So that is what I would say to them, and then they would say, "Grammy, can you make us something to eat?" And then I would be like, "Okay, fine."
And Ralycia, final words from you.
Well, after I tell them about the hardships of going to school during COVID, I would definitely say this is a redefining moment. This is a revolution. This is, as Danico said, iconic. This is groundbreaking. This is changing how we process Barbados and the Caribbean as a region. This is something that is going to be in history books. You could imagine that I'm going to be reading history books to kids, grandkids, telling them about the history of Barbados not just becoming a republic, but having Rihanna as a national hero and having some young Black woman making moolah elected as a national hero, changing the way that we define Black women in the Caribbean society, changing the way that we define who a national hero is. So I would definitely say that this is a moment that's going to restructure everything in the Caribbean region.
All right. So once again, fantastic comments. And thanks so much to my panel, Arianne, Danico, and Ralycia. This has been Cultural Bite from the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts as part of the virtual faculty week. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. We can go on for another hour and a half easily, but we have to cut it off somewhere. We have to bring our arbitrary stop, to use another cultural studies term, to this discussion. So once again, as I said, my name is Dr. Stefan Walcott. Be sure to check out the other episodes in this series as well. Thank you so much.